I wrote about that today on CNBC.com, that I think this is being, in many ways, I compared it to the lead up to the war in Iraq. There were a group of neocons in 1997 led by Bill Kristol, Dick Cheney, Paul Wolfowitz and others who wanted regime change in Iraq. And they tried to get President Clinton to do that. He passed. President Bush went forward post 9/11 with that notion. And you see the president's advisors, this president's advisors, building a similar case that China is an existential economic and military threat to the United States. And as such, we have to have a wider economic war with China to weaken them economically and militarily over the long run. And it seems to me that's what's developing, not just a simple trade war.
And who are the presidential advisors who are carrying that ball?
I mean, most people don't think that Steve Bannon's still advising the president. I happen to think that he's still in the game talking about this stuff. He's got a monastery in Italy where he's talking about economic nationalism to anyone who will listen. Then you've got Bob Lighthizer, the president's trade rep, and you've got Peter Navarro, who is the trade expert in the White House. They're all saying effectively the same thing, that China needs to be stopped.
Jason Pride, your reaction to what Ron just said, and also to the idea that maybe as this trade scuffle prolongs itself, that the global economy is going to slow. You're already seeing commodity prices come down, oil prices are down,
right,
and bond yields are down. Those are usually signs that people are anticipating a slowing.
Right. So it's gone from trade discussion to trade war to now trade scuffle. I think we can find some more nouns for this somewhere along the way. I think one of the bigger backdrop pictures here is that there's a general regime change in terms of how the U.S. Wants to operate in global policy or in global trade. For a long time, we were the long-term driver. We were willing to enter into trade deals that put us at a slight disadvantage in order to get the global trade going. We were a great leader in doing that, and we got it up and running. And now we're basically coming back to the table, whether you like the approach or not, we're looking at the deal and recognizing, okay, we were at a little bit of a disadvantage with what we got. Maybe now we need to make it more parity. Now, the way it's being done is actually quite volatile. I think that's actually what's causing a lot of the problems. Our base case right now is where it's somewhere around a 0.3 to 0.4% of GDP headwind based on what has been implemented so far, with almost like a random number generator around that, from the perspective of a trade deal could come in place and all that trade headwind could go away, or you could have a ratcheting up in tariffs and a slowdown in trade that actually impacts the economy more significantly. I'll add one additional thought to that, and I think this is right, is that we're seeing in business surveys, businesses that are holding back on capital spending or business decisions because they just don't know the rules of the game as to how they're operating. And if we were to actually get some clarity on what's going to happen, we could actually have a much better economic environment.
Sure. Clarity would help people make those decisions. But, Ron, we may not have that for a while.
Clarity's good.
The only thing I wonder is, having gone from such optimism about the outcome a couple of months ago when everybody said there's going to be a deal, all the rhetoric was positive. Now it's completely gone the other way. I mean, we're now comparing this to the Iraq war and so forth. So is it possible that everyone's now saying we're getting defensive, we're in this for the long haul, and we're going to get surprised with some kind of breakthrough?
Well, maybe. The one thing that I read recently, too, there was a report out suggesting that the administration may look at countries that they deem currency manipulators as the next target for tariffs. And we still have Europe and Japan with respect to autos 6 months down the road. This has become a much deeper game than just China. So you talk about competitive currency devaluations, you talk about retaliation that's possible elsewhere. And as Tyler was saying, listen, bond market, lumber, copper, oil, these are collapsing in price. They're sending a distinctly different message than the stock market. So we've had a 5% correction in stocks. I worry that still, as I've said, I think many times in the past, the stock market in particular has underpriced or mispriced risk when it comes to these political and geopolitical issues going forward.